All right, it is Friday, and as you know, on Friday we always do the financial news wrap up, and we're here with my good friend Michael Zuber. How are you today, Michael?
I'm doing great, Ty. Again, I look forward to this every week. It allows me to kind of get out of the daily noise and really talk about what was the important stuff from the week. So thank you for the opportunity.
I love the summary too. It just, I feel like it encapsulates and gives, I know for a lot of the people in our foundation builders and all of our masterminds and such, it's, a nice fast way to just get everything that happened in the week. So, I know here in California, right? So Michael's in California, I'm in California. We both invest in California. We obviously had a big recall election, but I want to save that for last. Let's get into the CPI. Tell us what's going on there.
Yeah, this was a big week, Ty, for the consumer. And if you follow my channel, my story for any length of time, you know that my number one focus is the consumer. Why? Two reasons. One, the consumer makes the US economy go. They are about 68% of the economy. But two, they are the biggest competitor, certainly in 2020, right? The owner-occ, was the biggest competitor and really prevented me from getting any deals out of the MLS last year because there was no inventory. In addition to that, they are also my renters or tenants. So this was a big week for the consumer, and it started right off on Tuesday. And unfortunately, CPI, which stands for Consumer Price Index, it's an inflation gauge of stuff that you and I buy, is still really high. It's, I believe from memory, it's 5.3% matching last month. I think it's like the fourth or fifth month over 5%. The powers that be are telling you not to worry, it's transitory. I'm here to tell you, I don't think it's transitory. I think this is a trend that really could go on into next year and potentially much of next year. And by my definition of transitory, something that is greater than 12 months, not transitory. So see, inflation is real and it's being felt by consumers. And why this is important is inflation is a tax. You may hear AOC with her white dress with tax the rich on it. That's cute. But inflation crushes the people at the bottom end of the spectrum. The rich can pay $1 in orange or whatever it is. They can fill up their gas tank at $5. It's the people bouncing around the bottom that are being taxed by inflation. And AOC doesn't want to acknowledge it, but inflation is the greatest tax, and every human being around the world is paying for it, including China and Europe and Australia. Inflation is real, and it's here.
It is here. Absolutely. So, I would completely agree. I love the way that you translate that a tax on everyone. And that actually makes so much more sense because people are like, well, inflation, how does it affect me? Think of it as an additional tax.
It's absolutely a tax.
I love that. That makes a lot more sense. So let's keep going. Let's talk about retail sale numbers. How was that this week?
Yeah. So again, one of the things I love about tracking the consumer is, when you track something as big and as important as a consumer, there are lots of indicators and like smoke signals and things to think about what could be. But retail sales, that's hard, fast numbers, right? That is somebody took out a credit card or a debit card or crypto or whatever they're doing, right? They bought something. That's a hard and fast number. And retail sales for the month of August, which was what was reported on yesterday, exceeded expectations by a mile. They were actually expecting retail sales to go negative, as was I. They were actually positive. And if you take out autos, which they call X autos, it was even more positive. It was almost 2% when they were expecting a -1. So not only was it a barn burner, but it was above expectations. And the reason X autos makes sense is we had a big run in autos last year, and people don't generally buy a car every year, right? They're 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9 years. So I think X autos is even more important. It was up 1.8% on month, which is awesome. But more importantly, people were thinking this Delta variant and all these other negative news headlines would cause people to retreat. They didn't. They kept spending.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear. So let's talk about consumer sentiment.
This is one of those smoke signals. This is one of those early indicators. These are one of the ones that I look for now to look for the future, right? This one that came out today tells me perhaps about September's retail sales, which obviously we're still in the month, right? This is like the earliest indicator, because the consumer sentiment is a phone call that says, what are you thinking? What are you thinking? What are you thinking? Right? Are you happy or sad? Right? What are you doing? And consumer sentiment today was below expectations. It was a 72, which means nothing to no one. Know this. It was less than they expected, which means consumers are gloomier than they expected. It was up slightly from last month. So the takeaway for me is consumers are less gloomy than last month, but not as happy as was expected. So we'll see. Retail sales surprised last month, as I just shared. But consumer sentiment, kind of that early indicator for next month, still not great.
Still not great. And I want to just connect the dots to something I feel like you said the last 2 weeks, was that overall the timeline of cycles, we are due for a recession.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you had talked about, in terms of a recession, potentially maybe not next year, but even into the following.
I think.
What are your thoughts today about that?
It would not shock me if we had a recession in the next. It would not shock me if in the next 18 months we had a recession. Wouldn't shock me.
Got it.
Right?
And
Yeah.
would it be expected?
No, I don't think people are going to see this one coming.
Okay. All right. Good to follow up. Good to follow up. So let's talk about, there was a developing story in China. Please elaborate.
Yeah. So one of the things that I try to do is when you look at the financial markets, what some people don't really realize is the financial markets are really worldwide, and we are far more intertwined and interrelated than probably most of us know, and most of us would even think possible. So if you don't know, China property market is going through what could be, what might be, its early days, might be kind of the Great Recession that we unfortunately went through in 2006. And if you remember, our market started really getting nasty when Bear Stearns went out of business. The government didn't want to bail it out. It went to zero. People lost their jobs. And then we saw all this counterparty risk with AIG and all these other things. And that's where we had the TARP bill. And it was nasty, nasty. So China is at that point where they could have that moment. So Evergrande is the second largest property developer in China. Property is responsible for the lion's share of wealth generation in China the last decade to decade and a half, right? People, you and I in China, a lot of our wealth is housing. A lot of them bought multiple houses because it was like the place to make money in China, or build wealth in China, I should say. And right now, Evergrande's got $300 billion in US debt, right? Denominated debt, dollar debt, that they've now indicated they can't pay. They can't make interest payments. The government, the regime, has instituted some hamstrings where they can't borrow anymore. So they are in trouble. There's talk about breaking them up and selling off parts to other developers. There is talk about potentially just letting them go bust, and that could be really bad. But in essence, I think what's happening now is property values in China are about to be reset. And unfortunately, that means wealth comes down. That means that debt gets restructured. So we're going to find out who has China debt, because unfortunately, what have we seen the last year? People have been seeking yield. And in the junk market, some of the China property developers were offering the best yield. So some people chased it. Now they're about to get a haircut or go bust. And then also you got to remember, just like the US, China's consumers make the economy go. By no means 68%, but still significant. And what happened on Monday, China's consumers reported a significant drop. They were expected to grow 8%, and they only grew 2%. So you're already starting to see the China consumer kind of retreat. And I wonder if this bigger story in Evergrande is going to blow up and just impact China. I don't think so. I think it's big enough, and it might impact kind of US banks, and really could damage China's financial system, which will have ramifications around the world. It's a developing story that we all have to pay attention to.
Got it. So to be continued, something that we're going to be watching over the next weeks and months, maybe.
Yeah, it's probably a resolution, probably 4 to 6 weeks out. It's happening right now.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you for keeping your eye on what's going on. I had no idea about the China, that China piece at all. So that's really new news to me. And I don't think that's on a lot of people's radar. So thank you. And obviously it does have global impact.
Yeah, I talked about it 4 months ago, not Evergrande, the company, but I said the next black swan will probably be in China property market. So, as of today, I look like a genius, but we'll see where this goes.
You look like a genius every Friday.
Nah,
Just so you know.
I'll say
Every
most
Friday.
most Fridays, most Fridays.
Most Fridays. Okay, I'll give you that. So let's wrap up with, let's talk about the California election, the recall. Like we talked about it, you and I think talked about it briefly last week. Obviously it happened. What did you see there? Give us some of your thoughts on that.
So first and foremost, I voted for the recall. If anybody watches my channel, Gavin Newsom's the only guy I call out because I think he's a liar and a bad human being, and there's nothing good about him. We don't need to talk about who I voted for. That's not relevant. Vote for whoever you want. I just wanted him out, right? But as far as about a week ago, I was on record saying Gavin Newsom's going to win this and he's going to win in a landslide, which I wasn't happy about. The reason I said that is because Gavin Newsom and the Democratic Party basically created Trump, right? They found a candidate that mirrored Trump and had the baggage that Trump had. And I'm not saying Trump had baggage for the country, but in California, which this was a California election, Trump doesn't win in California, right? We are blue. So I believed Gavin Newsom needed to be recalled, but he won because the leading Republican candidate, or the leading candidate, was dark red. The only way to win, and the reason Arnold Schwarzenegger won, was because he was purple, right? He had some blue in him, right? He was married to a Kennedy, for heaven's sakes, at the time. So Arnold was purple. The only way you were going to get Gavin out is if you had a purple moderate Republican go in. And Gavin won as soon as, Elder was the leading candidate. It was not even going to be close. Once you start rattling the Democrats, and everybody got a ballot in the mail, which most people were going to ignore until you scare the deep blue state about Trump coming in. And once that happened, once the San Diego, I think mayor or whoever he was, and meet Kevin or Kevin Paffrath, once all these other candidates were like second tier and it was Elder and Newsom had it in the bag. It wasn't even going to be close, and it wasn't close.
Interesting. So let's talk about that. So now, right now, the one thing that in my observation, my opinion, it feels like Gavin Newsom was really quiet over the last,
he is going to get loud now.
3-4 months, right? Now, so let's talk about that. Now that he's passed this, let's talk about, does the eviction moratorium in California get extended to
January? No question.
January, right? What else do we see?
He is going to feel so emboldened. He's going to feel like he's a dictator, and he's going to feel like the rule of law doesn't matter. Right? He can go eat at restaurants, but we can't. His kids can go to school, but our kids can't. His kids can go to camp without masks. Ours can't. He's a horrible human being. And we're going to get more of that. He's going to tell us how to live, and he's going to live differently. And it's what we voted for.
So landlords should be prepared, right? This moratorium,
I said it a month ago. If he wins, I said he will not extend it until after the recall. And if he successfully gets, reelected or not recalled or whatever the right vocabulary is, I would expect it. I would expect it in the next 10 days, because I think right now it expires October 1st.
Correct. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. So I'm thinking, the mask mandates, I'm going to do whatever I want. Eviction moratorium extended to January, potentially even January getting extended till March.
Yeah, I'm going to let my wife take donations from Hollywood, so Hollywood gets, special treatment. It's all kinds of toxic political soup. But hey, they won because the Republicans were not strategic, unfortunately.
Yeah. Interesting. Very interesting. So, Michael, thank you for all that you do. This has been great. This has been insightful. I know that some of the masterminds that Adrian and I are involved in, we want to have you come in maybe next Tuesday. You and I will talk out after this. But you're always such a gift and such a giver to our community, your community. If you don't know, if you're not following Michael at One Rental at a Time on YouTube, all the social platforms, Facebook, Instagram, he puts out amazing content. And as always, we've got the book, we've got the book here. So one rental at a time. In the new book, tell us when is the new book dropping?
So we're going through production right now. The first run, we actually misprinted it, of all things. We made it 8.5 by 11. It feels like a textbook, but it is done. We had to reformat it. I'm waiting for copies to show up tomorrow. I'm fairly certain we nailed it. And assuming we nailed it, I'm going to do a two-week pre-release or whatever they call that. I'm guessing October 1st. I'm targeting.
I love it. So October 1st, folks. So here's the thing. If you're getting a lot of value, we always talk about this book, and this book is a must-have. At the same time, if you're getting a lot of value from the content that Michael puts out, this is the time to reciprocate. Be prepared. You will be asked to buy the book in the next 2.5 weeks. So just be prepared. The new book is dropping, as well as, once it starts to promote, we really appreciate any promotion. By the way, I'm not affiliated. One Rental at a Time is Michael's business. We're friends. I'm a part of his program. I paid to be a student of Michael. Michael gives me tremendous value in my business. After 3 decades, Michael, again, I've had a lot of success. Michael is somebody I follow and look up to. So thank you, Michael, for all that you do. Have a great weekend. Happy Friday.
Thank you, buddy.